Thanks in part to post-Vietnam and the fizzling Cold War, the late 80s and early 90s were filled with military-themed games. Everything from beat-em-ups like POW to run-and-guns like Contra to movie tie-ins like Platoon. There was an infatuation of sorts with military destruction. There was no shortage of fighter pilot games either, whether it be third-person perspective games like Afterburner or top-down shooters like 1942, or in the case of today's game, a little bit of both. What's rare, though, is having a game release in America, even after the Cold War, where you play as the Soviets. MIG-29, or MIG-29 as I'll call it for the rest of the video at the risk of later being told that is wrong to do, is subtitled Soviet Fighter, and you take control of a Soviet jet. Instead of fighting off pesky Americans, as you might expect a Soviet fighter jet to be portrayed as doing it around this time, this jet is up against the World Terrorist Army. More on that later. MiG-29 is one of those shiny unlicensed cartridges in the NES library with a little switch on the back for changing the compatibility between US and European consoles. No, it doesn't flip which side of the Cold War you're on. And interestingly, the game was originally developed for the ZX Spectrum by one guy, Richard Cheney. Nah, not that Richard Cheney. And Richard developed it when he was just a college student. Codemasters later updated Cheney's original work for release on other systems, like the NES. Anyway, what's up with MiG-29, Soviet Fighter, on the Nintendo Entertainment System? MiG-29 Soviet Fighter offers a decent-looking presentation, evident by this fighter jet propelling up the screen from the beginning. It's not going to knock your socks off, but for an unlicensed game you might be impressed with some of the things that it has going for it. At the start of each stage you're given a mission, which basically amounts to kill everything, don't die, and defeat the end boss. Each mission is broken into a few different set pieces, each with a different playstyle. You'll start with a view behind your plane, and you have to dodge all the missiles fired at you while shooting down the enemy fighters you see. The jet controls pretty well, and you have unlimited firepower. The biggest issue is that enemies come at you straight on, and in order to hit them, you have to basically be right over top of them on the screen, meaning you might not see a missile coming straight at you because the view of your jet is blocking it. The trick is to move around the screen a lot, but not quite willy-nilly. Deliberately make an effort to shoot down each plane, but stay on the move and out of the way of missiles so you don't take a hit. You don't want to take a hit, or at least not 3 hits, because that's a game over, and this one has no continues. Enemy missiles can of course come from the enemy jets flying at you, but also from the ground as well. There are some enemy fighters and helicopters that have homing weapons that chase you around the screen, likely making you squeal no, 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 no as you try not to die. It's fun. At some point you'll run low on fuel, and the good news is it's not up to you to decide when you refuel, that's all part of the game. A refuel jet will appear overhead and you're transported to a different view in the clouds where you have to hook your fuel receptacle to the dangling nozzle swinging back and forth. Think of it as a sky-high high five, and the sooner you latch on, the better. After that, it's back to fighting. If the enemies knew any better, they would just go attack your refuel plane and hang you out to dry. Eventually, you'll go up against a more imposing enemy, the stage boss. These follow the standard shoot-'em-up boss recipe you're familiar with. You'll dodge a barrage of firepower while dishing out your own when the opportunity presents itself. The problem here is that the bullets the bosses shoot at you are super tiny and hard to see. What are these, bullets for ants? Bullets for Ants. That's a great band name. On other levels, you transition into a top-down view and play as you would 1942 or any other number of shoot-'em-ups. These sections play about how you would expect. After each mission, you have to land your jet, which feels slightly tacked on, but you can mess it up. You just need to center the plane on the runway and descend, but there's some wind resistance that makes aiming the plane harder than you think. And if you descend too late, you'll smash into a vehicle in the back of the runway and lose a life despite completing the level. No bueno. As you go, you'll earn new weapons that you can switch on the fly. Literally. Typically, each new one you get is more powerful than the last, but they have different abilities. Some are more focused and more lethal to big targets, and others are more spread out and great for a barrage of incoming enemies. And each weapon feels unique, even in the different perspectives, whether you're trailing the plane in third-person flying levels, viewing the plane top-down in these levels, or going up against the bosses. There is a story here, and the manual goes the extra mile for us and even shows us a real-life picture of Colonel Krakow, the KGB's most powerful commander. However, he went missing and is presumed dead. Years later, the US and USSR forged a new era of peace to rid the world of conflict. The Cold War is over! Yes! Not so fast. Turns out Krakow was in hiding and returns to defy peace. This dude absolutely hates peace. He forms an army of terrorists and plans to wreak havoc on the world. You are Yuri Nureyev, a KGB captain and MiG-29 Fulcrum pilot, and you have to track down Colonel Krakow and take him out. You must forcefully and violently ensure the peace. But to do this, you must kill probably 600 terrorists, so good luck. You must survive 6 missions en route to Krakow, all without continues, a tall order. Thankfully, each mission has a different set piece to mix it up, whether over deserts, water, trees, and more. You'll be impressed with the variety this game offers over anything else. Weapons options, different sections and views, and a decent soundtrack add up to a game that's pretty well made and fun, and you might not expect that after a glance at the cover. If you have a pal, the two of you can compete for points by taking turns. When one player dies, the other takes over where they died and continues the level. And another nice touch is that you can select between arcade and simulator controls if you prefer inverted flying controls like some folks do. Even the transitions between perspectives are pretty impressive to me, and despite the difficulty due to the lack of continues, I found myself coming back to it even after I got the footage here. Well, that's going to do it for MiG-29 Soviet Fighter on the NES. Aside from all the ports I mentioned earlier, there's also a MiG-29 game on the Genesis, but that game is completely different. It is almost entirely a flight simulator, and the view stays inside the cockpit all the time. Just a heads up if you were curious. As always, look out for dangling nozzles, and thanks for watching.